Hello everyone, how are you doing? I'm doing well. I advise you to subscribe to the channel and put a like, did you do? Great. Now I propose to pepper-vayut to the topic of the video. We have today is not usual, namely, what are some of your personal rules that you refuse to break? Story 1. Agreed. And I think a kid or young adult asking for help is a very different situation. Not just because their situation is likely to be smaller in scope 700 words versus 100K, but because they're engaging with your craft. This is mentorship, and very possibly an opportunity to help them discover an interest in your field. That's much more rewarding than helping your buddy have pretty walls or get a useless app into the App Store. Also, kids and young adults likely don't have the means to pay you what your time is actually worth, and this is an opportunity to pay it forward professionally. Their mom, on the other hand. Story 2. The real answer that no one is saying as someone who will be a physician in a few months, it puts physicians in a shitty position because we are risking our license for something we don't have the rest of the history, physical labs for which is really needed to give advice or a diagnosis anyway. If we say don't worry about it and it's actually cancer and we didn't even have the necessary info to begin with, we are still liable. You're basically asking your friend to risk 11 years of school and $500,000 of debt. And basically they should just trust that you won't later come for them. We are trained to just say if you're worried you should see your doctor. I've personally seen most physicians are okay with close friends asking for basic advice. Do I take Tylenol or a leave for a headache? Do I need to see someone for this rash? But when their wives' friends' husbands have questions and they don't even know the person, there's so much liability and unknown it's not worth it. Story 3. This is a really valid point to remember. I have a former friend who did this. She tells people her husband steals all of her money, she isn't allowed to spend without his approval, etc. If you heard her, you would absolutely believe he's financially abusing her. The truth which she has openly told me privately is that she has spent them into absolute oblivion, cashed out retirement, racked up numerous credit cards, took out unnecessary loans, leased a crazy expensive car, forgetting taxes, and he's trying through totally normal methods. Absolutely nothing abusive or coerced to get on a budget. Story 4. No name calling. You call people by their names or you don't call to them at all. I was a childcare provider and I stressed this with the kids who wanted to tease others by calling them a crybaby or stupid dummy. My dad used to call me fat ass or fat cat, and sure, I was and still am overweight, but to have your own dad call you names like that really stung. And if someone is being a bitch or an asshole, I still call them by their names. The only time I've ever been called a bick was by an extremely angry 2-year-old with anger issues that stemmed from watching and hearing his parents fight and break up over and over. He'd call me and the other 2-year-old girl ID watch a bitch because I dared to teach him sharing and taking turns. Okay, Jay, it's your turn to ride the tricycle. I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes and then it will be Izzy's turn to ride. Okay. Beep, beep, beep. All right, Jay. It's Izzy's turn to ride the tricycle. I'll set a timer for 2 minutes and then it will be your turn again, you bitch. Then Izzy would get on the tricycle for her turn and he would call her a bitch too. So then during Izzy's turn, he would spend those 2 minutes in timeout for his mouth. Thankfully, Izzy absolutely hated timeout, and since she witnessed him going to timeout for saying bad words, she never picked up his potty mouth. Last thing I needed was 2-year-olds with foul mouth. They are both 10 now and Jay says that he's going to marry Izzy one day. He'll have a funny story to tell at their wedding. Lol. Story 5. Yep, I learned this the hard way. My now husband and I dated years ago in a very fast and intense right person, wrong time situation. We broke up and of course everyone hated him for breaking my heart. Blah, blah, blah. We did get back together and worked through our issues and are happily together a decade. Married half of that. I have people in my life who still dislike him for what he did. Granted, we were very young, and I feel like that alone should be considered. But I also get why they feel this way. The point is, I wish I hadn't said those things because sometimes it's awkward. Story 6. Stealing. I stole candy in elementary school and got caught by a mean teacher. I stole from both of their classroom. In my bag was some very unique Valentine's tin foil chocolate wrappers from the kind teacher. The mean teacher yanked my backpack off my body and dumped everything out. The teacher I stole the chocolates from probably could tell right away I stole from her room, but she still took the time to hug and comfort me while I was being reprimanded. The mean teacher didn't forget, and any time I was at a table in her room, she would make a big deal about moving all her personal belongings away from me. It wasn't my idea to steal. I was simply walking down the hall after school when I saw two of my friends coming out of a classroom with candy. They pulled me into it, but I was at fault for taking without asking. The end of that year we stole chocolate and our grade won at selling the most chocolates. We got a big chocolate bar from the company for winning, and when it came my turn to collect my piece, the mean teacher told me, "I think you have had enough chocolate," even though I only stole Jolly Ranchers from her classroom. After the mean one was gone and my kind teacher found out I didn't end up with any chocolate, she made sure to give me some. I always treasured that memory. The kind teacher died a year later with a sudden brain aneurysm, so in her honor I will never take something without asking again. Story 7. I had a friend who would make jokes right in front of her kids about how they ruined her life and how much happier she would have been if they'd never been born. 3 kids. Now 3 royally fucked up young adults. The jokes weren't the only way she fucked them up, but when she did that right in front of me, it was the first red flag I got. I'm still in touch with the middle child. I tried helping her with some issues, but good God, she's a train wreck, and at a certain point you've got to prioritize your own well-being, even if you want to help someone who won't help themselves. Story 8. Not smoking, vaping, doing edibles. It might be fun for you, but it's a very hard no for me. Refusing to be disrespected. Had to go through that at Taekwondo 23 years back with another teenage instructor. I'm older, and was the main instructor. I was well-taught, well-disciplined, well-liked. After much loyalty and accumulated stress, I just left. No notice. Nothing. That argument and many other petty things that person did to me just tipped the scale. My purpose has been fulfilled there. I left to protect my peace and my pride. My heart really broke with my passion, and though I'm not teaching, I am and will always be the better instructor. That is enough for me, and I'm still healing. As a traveler, I refuse to litter in anyone else's country. I don't know why other travelers end up doing that in another country they're not familiar with, but you're the guest. Act accordingly. You wouldn't want someone to litter your personal space. As someone who occasionally rides her bike throughout the city mountain bike, I refuse to cross the street when the light is still showing the red hand. I also refuse to ride in the bike lane. Many bicyclists, other pedestrians do this, but for many drivers who never pay attention to anything but their phones or are just in a hurry, I don't trust you will be at a complete stop at an intersection or a right-hand turn. I refuse to do half-assed cleaning. I want it neat and organized, especially if there are guests arriving to the residence. Impressions still matter. Story 9. Agreed. Also in the same vein, I will always take mentions of suicidality seriously. I do not give a fuck if it is phrased as a joke. I've lost 2 friends and a sibling to suicide. My best friend who died that way, I might have been able to delay enough for her to get more help. But my therapist at the time told me my anxiety was all in my head when I asked if I should be contacting the authorities or her mom. My former abusive roommate said they'd kill themselves if I kicked them out. And then when I sat down and had a serious heart-to-heart with them about it, they claimed it was a joke. The sheer fucking anxiety was horrible. When they finally left, I made sure their mom knew that they were struggling. It's always better safe than sorry. I would rather someone be mad at me for taking their joke too seriously than them be dead. Story 11. I do something similar. I never make promises. I tell people I will try my best and I apologize sincerely if I fail, but I'm not promising anyone anything. Life happens. In this same vein, I'm careful about accepting requests in general. I don't want to sign up for something and then cancel or resent the person I said I'd help because it turned out the task was too onerous. In spite of how mean this sounds, I'm generally considered a reliable and helpful person amongst my friends and family. Story 12. Brush your teeth in the morning and night. You will be shocked how many people do not do this. After a warm shower, always rinse off with cold water even though it's winter. It feels amazing, especially your face and feet. There are so many, always being organized in the house or anywhere. I hate being dirty or uncleaned areas. Treat others the way you wanted to be treated. Don't hang out with people who don't respect your boundaries. And no toxic people. Be honest. Admit when you are in the wrong. Don't try to change the other person. The other person won't change unless themselves want to change. Story 13. I do too. I also just don't like other people's cars. They usually smell weird. They want to play weird music and I can't vape even if they say I can. I won't vape in other people's faces. Once my friends all wanted to go to the mall and drive there together. I said I would take my own car and meet them there. I got in my car and the friend driving got out and came up to my car and was like, "What are you doing? We're all going to the same place? Why waste the gas money?" I said I always take my own car when I'm going somewhere, so thanks but no thanks. Sure enough, that same friend, after going to the mall, roped everybody into going to Hobby Lobby and they spend about 2 hours there. I went home. Story 14. I have a very competitive and addictive personality. The one rule that I refuse to break and have been successful thus far is that I don't gamble. I don't even jokingly put in a quarter into a slot machine. When I was in college, I would often accompany my friends when they go to the casino to play poker or blackjack. I never ever tried to play. I don't even buy the lottery. I wouldn't even participate in a friendly game of poker between friends. I would watch, but I'd never participate. I just know that if I try it once, I won't be able to stop due to how extremely competitive I can be. For example, during mine and my husband's honeymoon, we played 20 or more so games of backgammon and Scrabble because I couldn't stand the idea of him winning being ahead of me. Story 15. I think it's because of a couple factors. Most importantly, just like any other job, when it's your free time away from work, you don't want to have to basically be doing your job more and for free. Also, when it comes to healthcare advice, there can be a lot that normally goes into giving that advice: full history, labs, physical exam that you won't have, or won't be willing to do in a casual setting. So not only do you feel like you're doing work outside of work, but you're giving random advice on a situation you probably know very little of. Obviously, some people are asking very minor questions compared to others, but when this is happening constantly, it gets tiring. Story 16. My sleep schedule. I work the overnight shift and have a strict noon 8 p.m. sleep schedule that I keep on my days off. I feel it necessary to draw a hard line in the sand. If I give in once, it will become the expectation. Family will invite me to dinner at 5 p.m. and call me antisocial, or ask if I'm depressed when I decline. I ask them if they'd like to wake up at 2 a.m. to go to an Applebee's. No, why would we want to do that? Precisely. Which is why even on Christmas Eve, when the tradition was always to meet at Grandma's at 4:30 p.m. for the last 3 years, I haven't gone until 9 when I'm up and showered. If you're waking me up between 128, someone had better be on death's doorstep or my house had better be on fire. Story 17. It's not an everyday thing. It's just something that's happened to me a couple times over the years. Especially at parties as a teenager. Everyone's screwing around, having a good time, sometimes a little tipsy, and someone gets it into their head that they should totally kiss a girl. And since I like girls, I should indulge them. Wouldn't that be so fun and quirky, haha? I don't think it's strictly a bi thing. I'm sure they'd go for it if I was a lesbian too. And straight girls will also kiss each other for shits and giggles. They just go for you when you're queer because they assume you're always down. I went through with it once and then never again, because I'm not a fan of the way that whole situation makes me feel. Story 18. I never understand the women that get together to complain about their husbands. Aren't they supposed to be your favorite person? A girl I used to be friends with would come out with us, tell us all the things he did wrong to annoy her, and finish it off with, and I left him a list of chores to do while I'm out, so they better be done before I get home. But I know they won't be because he's playing games, forgetful, incompetent. The other women with us would add to her negative feedback loop about him and sympathetically say things like, "That is just men. Boys will be boys. He's just a guy." Meanwhile, I'd be sitting there absolutely bewildered that this is the reality they settled with. And I can't relate because my husband is the best person I know. Story 19. Don't mince words. Call out fucking fuckers as the fuckers they are. If you can't call someone out online because of BNBR rules, block them immediately. If someone is a proven idiot, block them immediately. Don't waste your time on them. If someone is pointlessly rude to anyone, not just you, block them. You might be next. People don't have a right not to be offended, especially at the truth. Ignore their histrionics. There's usually no need to block such fools. Unless they won't shut up, try to always focus on reality, not someone's emotions, opinion, not even yours. What's truly happening is more important than how people feel about it. When you made a mistake, online or in person, never double down. Apologize and be sincere about it. Accept sincere apologies from others. We all fuck up from time to time. Story 20. I don't call people names or say things to them to purposely hurt their feelings. I don't care what they are doing or saying. I am not going to cross that line. Now in private, that's a different story completely. I am absolutely vile and horrendous, deserving of hell. But no way am I going to say things that are hurtful to them and devastate them. The reason I don't say stuff is because I go low and deep and am brutal. I get hurt very easily and had a scorched earth policy. It was the norm growing up in my family. Only the strong survive. I have learned not to do it. It took years to train myself to not counterattack. Thankfully, I started to figure it out by the time I was 16 in 12th grade. Story 21. And even then, even if we had full access, it would be too much of a problem to treat a friend or close friend. And I think maybe Hippaya might also have something to do with that. If not, then it's an ethical issue. But anyway, as someone who's a youth peer support, that's a boundary I'm not willing to cross, is professionally treating friends. And that includes working with them outside of work while doing with them what I do for work. They're friends, not individuals on my caseload. Of course, my job is about supporting people and stuff in an unbiased and compassionate manner, and I support my friends the way I would individuals. But friends have different boundaries than the individuals I serve. Boundaries. That's my answer to this Lameo. Story 22. I don't talk negatively about family, partners, or friends to outside parties or indirectly. I primarily only get jobs that are available near public transportation. Broke this one in 2022. Never get or seek out a loan. The payback terms are astronomically higher than the loan. If you pay it off slowly or by the plan, you could be paying 3x to 50x higher if it's not paid off quickly. I was honest with people about dating them pretty early. I didn't want to waste anyone's time or effort. If I wanted to remain single, not have children, or interested in sex, I don't mind overpaying for people but underpay for things. Never messed around with married or attached people, it's necessary. Getting too personal with coworkers will only get married once. Story 23. I always text my loved one that I made it home safe and sound. Most of my friends and family forget to text me when I ask for them to let me know they made it home safe, which I understand because forgetfulness is a thing, plus I just assume they did. But for me, I refuse to let forgetfulness be an excuse as to why I didn't text my mom or my brother or my best friend that I made it home safe. I don't know the anxiety someone may be struggling with, what they're going through, and if I can ease them with this simple act, yeah, I'll make sure to do it. Story 24. I try my best not to make my problems anyone else's problems. People have enough to deal with. No need to add to it. I never ignore an animal. I never walk past any animal without somehow acknowledging it, be it with a pat, a few words, or even just a smile. No living thing should feel insignificant. My animals come first. I make sure they have what they need and want before I see to my own desires. That stray needs to be fed and reassured more than I need to scroll Reddit. My cat needs cuddle time more than I need to play that video game. Their time is more limited than mine, so they come first. Story 25. Always be polite to retail, food service workers, cashiers, etc. It give how bad my mood is. I'm not going to be mean or rude. I will put my mood on hiatus until my order is completed. Then once I get my stuff, thank them and tell them to have a nice day. I'm going to eat my food somewhere, glare off into space, and threaten to fight God. I worked 4.5 years. I was in a bad mood a lot. Never took it out on anyone working at the places I stopped at during my hour-long lunch. I refused to ever be mean or rude to these individuals. They work too hard for not enough pay dealing with all the BS customers, especially Sunday church crowds. Story 26. It blows my mind how some people are thrilled that they got a married person to divorce their spouse to marry them, yet are so surprised when the same thing happens to them. I had a friend whose was married and they had a young child. The husband cheated on her with a mutual friend and ended up divorcing my friend. 5 years later, he is married to the other woman and they have a toddler. Guess what he did? Yep. And this woman was just in a puzzling level of shock. To her, it came out of the blue. No warning. Story 27. I always tell my husband, kids, and other loved ones that I love them before we part ways. You never know when the last time you see somebody will be. Also, I refuse to walk away from any type of relationship, friendship, other social dynamic without the other party knowing exactly how I think and feel. It takes a weight off your shoulders to express yourself, and you can be in good conscience. When someone doesn't treat you or someone else right, hold them accountable. Don't be a victim of abuse if you can prevent it. Walk away if they don't respect your boundaries. Life is too short to hang on to someone or something that isn't going to work. Story 28. Yeah, this is my take on it. My best friend was in an abusive relationship that she didn't tell anyone about. Once we became friends, she confided a lot to me. They were on and off their last year, a large part to me finally telling her she deserves more. We had a huge blow-up when she was talking about marrying him. She finally let him have it and he can't stand my ass, lol. I really don't care. Her and her son's well-being is way more important to me than his feelings. So yeah, I definitely look at him a certain way with no shame. Story 29. I will always protect a person's right to think and decide on their own. I will never shut down a person no matter how different their thinking may be from my own. I might argue and debate if there are differences, or if I think they may be harming themselves or others, but I will always accept other person's right to stand by their opinion and decisions. I'm not sure whether this rule is as common sense as I see it, considering how many people I know in real life and especially online that will never accept nor tolerate. For example, conspiracy theorists. But I will always live by it, and I guess, bear the consequences. Story 30. It's a key factor in keeping your ass covered at work. Stick with your job responsibilities. Get things in writing, especially stating deadlines and estimates for how long things will take you to complete. Under-promise and over-deliver. If someone starts to push you, you fall back on these things and stay polite. Escalate the issue to your manager if they won't let up. If your manager is giving you a hard time and you have your ass covered with all of the above, then they are being unreasonable. Story 31. I broke this rule once when a PetSmart employee told me I had to print out and bring in a coupon I had been using digitally for years with no issue. Threw a literal tantrum and left the cart there and walked out. My father had recently had heart surgery and I was just full of anxiety and exhausted all the time. The interaction broke me and I took it out on that guy. I went back the next day and apologized. He clearly didn't accept it and that was completely okay. But I avoid him now and feel horrible anytime I buy dog food. Being a dick never pays. Story 32. If I won't say it to their face, don't say it behind their backs. If it looks good, a job done, a person's appearance, a kid's behavior, say so. Too often people only point out negatives. If I can help without getting myself in utter shit like lose job, miss a medical app, have been waiting months, financial strain, then I will. Be faithful to my husband. Have fun. Life's too short to be boring, lame and beige. One I've had to learn. Sometimes listening is enough. Don't try to solve their problem. Ask if they want help or just to be heard. Story 33. To add to this, I will never switch my work schedule or trade shifts with people. Already did this before when I was young and naive. They always promise to get me back but never do, because the days I need covered don't work for them, or they quit before they work. The shift I needed covered and I'm left with the awkwardness of dealing with my boss. If I need off now, I will request PTO. If my boss doesn't approve, I call in sick. I won't rely on someone else to pick up my shift. I will never pick up someone else's shift. Story 34. I work in the film industry. If I get severely disrespected 3 times, I leave the job. Examples include racist or sexist comments that were meant to humiliate or cause harm, disrespect my authority and input as a department head. I look young and I'm short, so I no longer tolerate older, taller directors or producers leaning down to my level to get me to listen to them again. Intended to humiliate or intimidate, that is pretty much it. My tolerance is pretty high, but it doesn't take much to be a decent, considerate human being. Story 35. Talking negatively about my spouse to anyone, other family, friends, or co-workers, as well as sex life. If he hasn't consented to it, I don't tell. It's always the main topic around people, and it makes me uncomfortable how judgy they get. Flirting with anyone. I don't even want to come off as it, even friendly flirting. Never try to cause harm to anyone or anything, especially to smaller, weaker things. But don't put anything above my own feelings when it matters. Hurting yourself to save someone else's feelings. Well, and that's all we have. I hope you liked the theme of this video. I ask you to support the channel with a like, subscribe, and Kalakulchikam, and leave your comments. I will be glad to read them.